the Orange County Crosstalk Show. I'm Alex Bucci. I'm here tonight at beautiful Pelican Resort here tonight. And the World Affairs Council of Orange County have a special event, and the keynote speaker is Royal Highness Prince Turki from Saudi Arabia, who is going to be talking about the affairs of the Middle East. And in a moment, we're going to watch the talks he's going to give about the Middle East. There are a number of people who are attending this meeting, and it's from a variety of different backgrounds and diversities. So please be with us. We're going to show you the segment of the Prince Turki's talk.
Welcome to the Pelican Hills Resort this evening. This is a great audience, a great crowd. We have a very special guest speaker. Please stand and join in welcoming Prince Turki, His Royal Highness. My name is Serge Tomassian. I am the chairman of the World Affairs Council of Orange County. We are the premier forum for world affairs in Orange County and expanding. We're going to start this evening, as is our tradition, with the Pledge of Allegiance. One of our members who is the table sponsor this evening, Norm Tamber, Air Force veteran, is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Norm?
Life is all about choices. Every situation is a choice. Within our Pledge of Allegiance, of only 31 words, is the aspirational message for all of us to follow. Please join me in that Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Norm.
It is an honor and a pleasure that I get to introduce our special guest speaker this evening. His Royal Highness Prince Turki Al Faisal is the youngest son of King Faisal and one of the founders of the King Faisal Foundation. He currently serves as chairman of the King Faisal Center for Research in Islamic Studies. From 2003 to 2005, Prince Turki Al Faisal served as ambassador to Great Britain and Ireland, and later as the Saudi ambassador to the United States. Until the events of 9/11, he served in the sensitive role as Director General of Saudi Intelligence Agency, working closely with the United States and others on critical security issues, including dialogue with the Taliban and the status of Osama bin Laden. He is currently co-chair of the C100 group, which has been affiliated with the World Economic Forum, encouraging interfaith dialogue and cross-cultural understanding. So please join me in welcoming our special guest, His Royal Highness Prince Turki.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What a privilege and an honor to be here tonight. I thank Susan Bagge for initiating this dialogue tonight, but also I thank the World Affairs Council for the invitation and Chairman Tomassian. Thank you very much for your wonderful introduction. I also extend my thanks to Ms. Sokolowski for her welcome. And she mentioned Rochester and Mayo Clinic. In 1943, when my late father first visited the United States during the Second World War, he had suffered from ulcers. So he was advised to go to the Mayo Clinic. And he did. And later on, my wife also was treated in the Mayo Clinic. And may I say, when Ms. Sokolowski mentioned the gentleman who was 107 years old, I wish he would inform the Mayo Clinic about what he does or what he eats, because that way we can all benefit from his life. As you are aware, the conflict-cursed Middle East is facing many challenges, living many ongoing crises, and encountering existential threats. Talking about such challenges, crises, and threats is a topic that is broad and complex, considering the dramatic events taking place in our region. Nowadays, uncertainty is the prevailing order in the Middle East. The speed and nature of unleashed events in the last 6 years are changing the dynamics of internal, regional, and international politics of the region. It is still early to know or to determine the result of this unfolding process, but no doubt that such changes will create a new strategic environment, offer new opportunities, and pose new challenges to the nations in the region. Therefore, we are all struggling to preserve ourselves and to avoid the looming anarchy and, if possible, to take advantage of the situation to reach a peaceful and stable future. In this respect, Saudi Arabia is not exceptional. One of the most dangerous outcomes of the prevailing uncertainty, which threatens the future of the region and all its nation-states, is the vacuum that widens every day because of the crumbling order and social contracts in certain Arab countries. This vacuum is responsible for unleashing all kinds of political, social, and religious forces, the rise of non-state actors, and for opening the door to all kinds of interferences that complicate finding indigenous solutions to indigenous crises. Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya are issues at hand. The outcome of these upheavals, so far, does not offer any safeguard to a bright future. It is the responsibility of leading powers in the world and in the region to manage such situations, to guarantee the birth of healthy and peaceful national and regional orders. Because of history and mutual interest, the USA has a special responsibility to lead in this respect. Ladies and gentlemen, Saudi Arabia is a major actor in regional and international affairs, and therefore the security and stability of the regional order has always been a priority and a basic determinant to its foreign policy and its national security. It is bound to lead in this respect. Saudi Arabia views the changes in our region as domestic upheavals driven mainly by domestic forces. But at the same time, we are cautious about the outcome on regional stability because the region is already weighed down by a heavy load of protracted problems complicated by both Israeli and Iranian policies. Saudi Arabia bases its policy on a set of principles that clearly explain where Saudi Arabia stands and its attitudes towards such crises and their regional implications. First, Saudi Arabia believes in the concept that legitimacy of any government is derived from its own people. It is the duty of any government to protect and promote the rights, dignity, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Therefore, Saudi Arabia had and will support developments that make governments more responsive to the demands of their people and more able to meet their aspirations. Second, we strongly believe in the inviolability of the Arab nation-state system and see it as the best means to serve the interests of the Arab people. Hence, Saudi Arabia stands against any civil strife or external interventions that threaten the national unity, territorial integrity, and the social fabric of any Arab country. Anarchy, chaos, and disorder are not in the interest of the people or the internal and external peace and security. In this respect, our only interest is that countries that have witnessed dramatic changes begin to stabilize and proceed to a brighter future. Third, we believe that transnational ideologies, whatever their manifestations, that do not recognize and admit the existence of nation-states constitute a major threat to the national and regional order. Fourth, we believe in the importance of having the best possible bilateral relations with all Arab countries, based on mutual respect to our independence and sovereignty, and working through regional multilateral institutions such as the Arab League, the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the United Nations to preserve the stability and security that every country needs to achieve any kind of development or progress. And fifth, Saudi Arabia believes in international law and international treaties and conventions, and in the role of international bodies in implementing such rules and norms to preserve regional and international peace, and therefore it complies with and respects such rules and institutions. Based on these guidelines, we see that security and stability are a priority regardless of where the dust of continuing crises settles. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge of Iran's policy behavior and its revolutionary syndrome is a continuing security concern. There are overwhelming issues with Iran. Its scheme to acquire nuclear weapons, its occupation of the 3 islands belonging to the United Arab Emirates, and its persistent meddling in the affairs of Arab states and sectarianizing their polity. As for the issue of nuclear weapons, on countless occasions, we have reiterated that Iran, like all other countries, has the right to pursue its schemes in developing nuclear technology for peaceful uses. But at the same time, we continue to insist that Iran should give up its goal of acquiring nuclear weapons, support the creation of a zone free of weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East, and abide by all requirements and obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty regime. We also clearly stated that if Iran continues its nuclear ambitions, others in the region will be compelled to pursue policies that could lead to more proliferation and therefore more insecurity and instability. We did not see this issue as a regional one, but as an international issue, and we have supported the negotiations of the P5+1 with Iran in the hope of securing the termination of Iranian military nuclear activities. It is our hope that the agreement of last year will ensure the termination of Iran's nuclear ambitions. Saudi Arabia will be watching the way the agreement is implemented and how it reflects on Iranian behavior. It is unfortunate to report to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Iran, because of this agreement, has intensified and escalated its bullying in the region. On the second issue, that of Iran's occupation of the Emirati Islands, we support the United Arab Emirates' position and have urged Iran to accept a ruling from the International Court of Justice. On the third issue, that of Iran's inserting itself into the domestic politics of Arab countries, there can be no flexibility. Sectarianizing our region is no less threatening and destructive than the nuclear weapons. Iran should look in the mirror and see its behavior since 1979 and who is behind igniting such destructive trends. Nothing but Iran's revolutionary syndrome is behind all of this. A thesis begets its antithesis. Therefore, Iran must rethink its Arab policies, funding non-state sectarian entities in Lebanon, Iraq, Bahrain, Yemen, and Syria to destabilize their national unity and social fabric will not serve anyone's interests. Saudi Arabia looks at Iran and considers what is to come, and we can only hope that the people of that nation will encourage their leaders to take a wiser and safer route than the one they now seem bent upon traveling, much to the detriment of themselves and others. Destabilizing neighbors is not a guarantee of regional dominance and influence. It is a recipe for self-defeat. The grand project of Pax Iranica is doomed because it is based on sectarianism and lust for hegemony. We have been extending our hands to Iran for the last 3 decades, and we will continue to do so. But we will never tolerate its interference in our affairs and its destructive policies in our region. As for the crisis in Syria, ladies and gentlemen, it has spilled over and threatens its neighborhood. Saudi Arabia, for the last 5 years, has received 2.5 million Syrians. We don't treat them as refugees, to be housed in tents. Over 500,000 have chosen to stay and were given residency permits that include medical care and schooling for their children. The rest have means to move on to other countries, and they have done so. But in Europe and America, the Syrian refugees are still an unfolding story. The violence in Syria has reached unbearable levels, killing, destruction, and all forms of human suffering. The international community has so far failed to address this crisis in a rational way. And it is unfortunately becoming an issue of power politics between great powers. A peaceful solution to the crisis that preserves the unity, sovereignty, and stability of Syria and achieves the aspirations of the Syrian people is the goal of all. But this is not and will not be attainable without real international pressure and achieving a balance of military power between the regime and the opposing forces. Using the threat of force and the submission of the Syrian regime to the demand of ridding itself from chemical weapons proved the feasibility of such an option. However, Saudi Arabia is not warmongering or happy to see the destruction and human suffering there, and we have wished from the beginning that Assad had listened to the voice of his people and the voice of wisdom to avoid all of this. Alas, he led his country to this disastrous situation and could do so by the lack of international will. In this respect, all efforts to find peaceful solutions have failed, and no promising initiative is on the horizon. As we see, after 1 year of Russian military intervention, nothing has changed but more destruction and more killing, and more complexity to the whole situation. Furthermore, it is polarizing the international community, and there is a risk of escalating into an international confrontation. Saudi Arabia, ladies and gentlemen, will go to the end with the Syrian people in finding a peaceful solution reflecting their aspirations and preserving the unity and sovereignty of their country. And in Yemen, ladies and gentlemen, the situation impacts the national security of Saudi Arabia directly. Stability and tranquility of Yemen has always been a national strategic interest for Saudi Arabia due to geographical, historical, demographical, and strategic factors. Preserving peace and security and empowering the Yemeni people with a friendly political regime that keeps the national balance within Yemen were always a Saudi priority. For the last 5 decades, Saudi Arabia invested more than $60 billion in Yemen to achieve stability and peace by helping Yemen to develop its own infrastructure in all fields of development. In addition, Saudi Arabia has over the years hosted millions of Yemenis whose remittances contribute greatly to the well-being of a large segment of Yemeni society. The 2011 revolution could have led Yemen to the verge of collapse and becoming another Syria or Libya. Saudi Arabia and its sister states of the GCC came with an initiative that secured the abdication of Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh, brought transitional institutions, and a well-defined political path toward a new social and political order. All Yemeni political and social forces participated in a national dialogue that produced agreed-upon principles and procedures to move forward toward a united and peaceful future. Alas, the Houthis, one of the religious and political forces participating in the national dialogue, armed with weapons and Iranian support, and the forces loyal to the former president, took advantage of the turmoil to write a different future for Yemen. By hijacking the Yemeni state, the Houthis took Yemen to an uncertain future. The ideological enmity of this armed militia to Saudi Arabia and the legitimate transitional government in Yemen, breaking the national balance, and the failure of all attempts by the United Nations to broker an agreement with them to save the state and its institutions, left Saudi Arabia and its allies with no alternative but to save Yemen and to free it from this gang-minded militia. War was never an alternative to Saudi Arabia, but allowing the Houthis to get away with their agenda threatens not only peace and security in the Arabian Peninsula and Yemen, but the whole of the Red Sea and the East India Ocean coast. Supporting the legitimate leadership in Yemen is a noble cause that will save Yemen and the rest of the peninsula. Saudi Arabia is not at war with Yemen, but it is supporting the internationally recognized legitimate government of Yemen against a sectarian militia and a power-hungry ex-president to reclaim its rightful place among the community of nations. We have encouraged the legitimate government of Yemen to reach a peaceful solution with its adversaries, and it did. It has been negotiating with them under UN auspices to implement the Security Council Resolution 2216, demanding the Houthis to withdraw from all seized areas and to relinquish all seized arms and establish an armed embargo on the Houthis and forces loyal to the former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. All rounds of peace talks have failed to bring about a peaceful end to this crisis. The latest round ended days ago, and the Houthis fired a missile aimed at the holy city of Mecca. What more will those who support them, primarily Iran, need to recognize them for what they are? A band of vicious, immoral, and bloodthirsty criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, terrorism remains an important threat. It is not just fahish, my name for the obscenity that would claim Islam for itself, or Al-Qaeda that continue to threaten the region. There are also various emerging and re-emerging non-state actors who are moving in to take advantage of power vacuums created by shifting political dynamics. Just look at the militias coming out of Iraq. The failure of the consequences of the invasion of Iraq and the failure of the international community and regional powers to deal seriously with the situation in Syria led to the emergence of the so-called Islamic State, or Daesh, which, as I mentioned before, I call fahish, which means obscene in Arabic. and with it emerged a new wave of terrorism. The ideology of fahish is transnational by its nature, like the leadership in Iran, and therefore it constitutes a threat to the concept of nation-state in our region. Saudi Arabia is not exceptional in facing this threat and is targeted by it. We have countered and defeated Al-Qaeda, and I am confident that we will defeat fahish. But we should work together to stamp out the scourge of individuals who feel it is their right to visit heinous violence upon others in the name of false and destructive ends. But ladies and gentlemen, whatever the geopolitical changes in the region may be, they will never change the nature of the overlooming challenge of far longer gestation, a situation that lies at the center of so many difficulties faced by our region, namely the plight of the Palestinian people. Solving the Palestinian and Arab-Israeli conflict is imperative to a peaceful region. The responsibility for continued failure in reaching a just solution to this just cause rests squarely on Israel and its supporters in the world. Israel's ambitious colonization of Palestine and persecution of the Palestinian people are no less doomed than the Iranian ones. In conclusion, during the past 4 decades, Saudi Arabia and its sister monarchies in the Gulf and the Arab world have succeeded through diplomacy, international alliances, and internal cohesion in preserving the relative security and stability in the region. Through such means, we can still deal with the occurring crises facing our region. However, the absence of a world leadership and the reluctance of world powers to act responsibly is allowing the continued deterioration of the situation in the Middle East. Let us hope that the world come to its senses soon. And the final few words, ladies and gentlemen, about JASTA, the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act. The implications and unintended consequences of JASTA are broad and far-reaching. To amend the basis of sovereign immunity, the U.S. Congress has taken steps that will bring significant harm to the international system. Most members of the international community, including the European Union, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Arab League, and the GCC, oppose JASTA because of its consequences on the principle of sovereign immunity. Already, over 15 countries have voiced their concern or signaled their intent to pass similar reciprocal measures. Given the presence that the United States has worldwide, such reciprocal measures will most likely affect U.S. interests, including the fate of servicemen and women and diplomats. The widely accepted principle of sovereign immunity has governed the international community for centuries. Without sovereign immunity, no country, including the U.S., can conduct its affairs effectively. The Obama administration and the U.S. State Department understand the damage that JASTA would bring to international order, and that is why the U.S. President vetoed it. It is also why the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Director of National Intelligence have all expressed their concerns and opposition to it. If the principle of foreign sovereign immunity is threatened, investor confidence in the United States economy will naturally be reduced. It will certainly have a detrimental effect on the bilateral relations and the ongoing cooperation that the U.S. has with its closest allies, including cooperation in countering terrorism. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Next, very critical issues around the world, particularly in the Middle East. Suzanne Vaj, who is our co-chair of programs, is with me, and I think we should thank her and her organization. Syed Mujtahid, close enough. Thank you very much for bringing Prince Turki here as our guest speaker, and so thank you very much for that opportunity. We did want to recognize our corporate sponsor, R&D Medical. Dave and Veronica Sheraton are here at the head table. We want to recognize them. We have a tradition here for our guest speakers, and you're one of our very special guest speakers. So we give a token of appreciation that you can remember us. So, you know, what do you give a prince? But I, you know, somebody asked me that years ago, and it was a very prominent individual. If I said this person's name, you would all say, "Oh yeah." And they said, "What can his grandchildren give him?" And I said, "Whatever they gave him, give him. If it's with love, he'll appreciate it." Yes. And so, Suzanne Vaj is going to present the first gift. Suzanne, present it to.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is very nice. Thank you very much.
Okay, see. The Prince mentioned this is his first occasion here in Orange County.
Yes.
So we thought we'd take back the book to remember our county as it once was and perhaps as it now is. So we have a book here, The Historic Photos of Orange County. So. Okay, now this was my idea, and Prince, you have to understand, at the time the Dodgers were up, the baseball team, the Dodgers were up, and I thought, I'm talking to some people, I'm not really a baseball guy, I'm more football and basketball, but they said, I think the Dodgers could do it. They could go to the World Series. And I said, well, who's at the World Series, who for the Dodgers is the key guy? And they go, it's the pitcher. It's like the quarterback, it's the pitcher. And they said, well, this is something he'll remember or he'll visit to. And I thought, well, who's the pitcher? And they said, well, Kershaw. It's not a mistake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to start learning how to play this. And also, Orange County, I said earlier at dinner, I walked out today and had about an hour of walk. And I told some of my Saudi colleagues here, enjoy yourselves while you're here, because this is the nearest you're going to get to heaven.
One more thing, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Steve Choi, of soon-to-be Assembly Member, Steve Choi, from Irvine, would like to present recognition to His Royal Highness.
Highness Prince Turki El Faisal, thank you so much for updating the complicated issues of the world, particularly in your region. I'm the mayor of city of Irvine. Just in case if you don't know, you may learn a few things. So we are the safest city in America for 12 straight years. So we know how to keep our city safe, and also we know how to live in peace and harmony among 75 different ethnic different groups. So in an appreciation of for your presentation to the World Affairs Council of Orange County, I'm happy to present certificate of recognition signed by Stephen Choi, Mayor, City of Irvine. By the way, I am an imported mayor from South Korea, not North Korea. Good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you to the Prince. Thank you to everyone who made this occasion happen. And thank you to everybody.
I'm so pleased to have Mr. Khatibi here. What was your take of the talk, the Prince talk?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Baruchi, for being here and covering our talk. This evening we had Prince Faisal, Turkey, from the House of Saud with us this evening, and his discussions arrayed from everything of Saudi Arabia's place in the world, as well as human rights, women's rights especially, that was a concern for us here in the United States, and his role on the issues going on with Iran, Lebanon, and the Syrian refugees. So he discussed a whole wider range of topics for a good 1 hour. We discussed everything from Iran to the Syrian refugees to women and human rights, and of course current affairs, politics. It was very interesting to learn from Prince Saud his beliefs on where Saudi Arabia lies within the Middle East as being a powerhouse. There were many issues that we did not agree upon, but it is always wonderful and enlightening to listen from various leaders around the world and their thought process for their communities.
He seems to me a kind of moderate person since
Yes.
in Saudi Arabia, and he mentioned a few times that they have a friendly hand toward Iran, and they're trying to see if Iran can change policies. What was your take on that?
Well, he is very moderate, but when it comes to women's rights, I'm not sure how moderate he is.
Moderate in terms of the policy.
That's true. So yes, he was very moderate in that sense. He does believe that Iran is a huge concern for the Middle East, with them having access to nuclear energy and nuclear capabilities. And he is working very strongly with the U.S. and other countries in the world to see how they can come up with a better agreement with Iran and nuclear enrichment and containment.
Did you find him optimistic about the Iran and Saudi Arabia future relationship?
He was slightly hopeful, I will say.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.